let's see. Test 1, 2, 3. I think we are live. Yes. Hi, everyone. Oh my goodness, I'm so happy to be doing this again. The last interview I did was in May. Oh, that was a while back. And I love these. I absolutely love these. They're conversations, and I find that they're powerful, insightful conversations with individuals who really bring their gifts and their strengths and their expression. And I'm really thrilled today to have a special guest. Her name is Raphael McKay, and I'm going to bring her on in just a second. We will be talking about the power and also the softness, the gentleness of the breath work. And Raphael is a practitioner in guided clarity breath work. And she is participating, she's one of the facilitators at my retreat in January, which we'll talk about later. But that's one of the reasons also that I wanted to bring her on, because I am just so excited to share her with my community. I discovered her in the research of looking for someone to do breath work with and for the retreat. And I chose her specifically for her yin approach to breathwork. So without further ado, I would like to bring her onto the screen so you can meet her. Hi, Raphael.
Hello.
Let me take this off so we can see you. There we are. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, I'm so glad that we're doing this. So I really want to dive into your journey around breathwork, because I find it's something that is still new to me, actually. With my movement practice, I definitely connect to the breath. I invite my participants to, soften and connect to their breath in the body. And sometimes I do some little explorations, breath of fire or connected breathing, but it's very short-lived. And so, yeah, I had some experiences that have made me more curious about it. And then when I discovered you and we got in contact, and then came over to your beautiful studio, which you're in right now, and had this experience, I was so touched by your approach, by this like soft, because the other explorations that I've had were very yang. So maybe let's start first before we go into all those details. I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm very excited. I'm like, let's start with your journey with breathwork. Like, how did you discover it, and what had you want to become a practitioner?
Right. Well, I'm fundamentally a singer, and so in singing and in teaching singing, the breath is obviously a huge part of how we use our voice and how the discovery of our voice. I've also been a massage therapist for like 15 years, and so that also in exploration with the body, so much of how to release tension is so much about our breath and how we live how we breathe, so how we breathe is really how we live, and all of this kind of interconnectedness. So in my teaching a lot, like I was doing a lot of breath connection through meditation, through more active breathing, really sensing how the breath is connected to how we sound, and so relating to all the elements of how we breathe and how we sound. And I think I was traveling in Europe, and a good friend of mine was attending a breathwork session, and so I just jumped in and really had this revelation when I was lying there breathing, of how powerful it is just to be in this constant connection with our breath. Even though when we're singing, it's such a constant connection, but to be there for an hour just breathing in this kind of constant flow, brought me into kind of a shamanic state that I've touched upon with different, medicines and different ways, and sweat lodges and amazing ways to connect with our unconscious, our subconscious. But this was really, really clear, a very clear, poignant unfolding of the connection to my consciousness, to my subconscious. So it was kind of like a mini revelation of how powerful our breath is to unlock our kind of, many traumas or huge traumas in our body, in our mind, transform, also seeing more clearly patternings in the mind, in the body, in the pain body. And so I found that, yeah, just by exploring more and taking more these classes and trainings, seeing the deeper depth of the the vast intricacies that we hold in our mind and our body, and how our breath can be such an amazing tool to discover them. So yeah, I came kind of casually, but then I followed it deep pretty fast. Yeah, I stayed longer in this place, and I did many different levels, and then I traveled to Costa Rica and finished my training, and so so it felt like a natural unraveling to follow this training.
All right. So
Mm-hmm.
you studied in Costa Rica abroad for the breath.
I studied in Ibiza in Europe, and then in Costa Rica, following the Clarity Breathwork duo, these beautiful ladies that live in Hawaii, uh, and uh, and followed their training. And then through my own experience, just it's like you have to do a lot of individual work and group work before you can become a practitioner. So yeah, like it took maybe about a couple of years to get this under my belt, and I still feel like I'm just beginning to explore to keep on exploring how breathwork can really aid us and liberate us of ourselves, really.
Yes. Well, I find it just so fascinating, right? That like we need to breathe to stay alive. Like, I mean, without breath, that's it. It's
Yeah.
over. So I just find it so fascinating that it's not a priority in our
Mhm.
culture, in our everyday to take on, some practices that enable us to breathe more deeply. And yeah, I
Yeah.
find that fascinating. For you, I'm assuming that you have integrated this into your practices and your
Hmm.
routines. And is there any like things that have changed for you that are very clear, correlated to these practices?
Yeah, I think so. I think with breath work, again, it's like again, really clear way to see certain even childhood traumas, even like past life, if you believe in that, if you journey in that, connections to this life. And a really big revelation happened to me was I, when I was 2, I was burnt all over my body with hot chicken soup. And so I knew about this in my childhood. I was like in the hospital, and I heard about it from my mother, that, people had to come into the hospital with like fully covered, because I was so sensitive, because all my skin was revealed. So it was kind of an intense, traumatic thing to happen to a 2-year-old.
Yes.
And so all of these artists like stories that were told to me, and for sure I see photos of like my arms wrapped and whatever, and I just have like a few marks, but really nothing. So I feel very lucky for that. But there was one seance of breathwork that I like really went into that memory and saw all of what happened as of the 2-year-old, all the blocks all my reserves, all of my anger, like not all, but like, where kind of this like resistance started, and seeing like the certain kind of shell that I, had to work through my whole life without being really conscious of where it stemmed from. And it was the first time that I was like, I mean, it took me so long to really, like, I was kind of in a shock state after the session. And it took, and I was with practitioners that really held the space for me to be able to really come into, like, bring that subconscious memory into my conscious mind. And I really feel from that moment, veils, like deep veils, shifted inside of me. And I was able to soften and be more approachable, and be less, less shy and less reserved and all of these things. And I really felt a huge shift in my being from that experience, so I felt like, those kind of experiences really made me see the power of breath work, because we're in altered states, because when you're breathing and you're in that kind of constant breathing, you become into an altered state. When you sing vigorously and into it, sometimes we get into an altered state. They're all like, beautiful states, can be also scary states, can also be like, so I think that there is something about why people don't go into their deep breath, is because we're afraid to kind of feel everything that we're existing, that we're living. And so that's where, for me, some of the keys of seeing, like, wow, the power of just the simplicity of just breathing in that constant flow, like a river that just is constantly going. There's so much that can just be revealed and like and washed away and moved away. So I don't know if, I'm fully answering your question. Yeah.
Sorry, I don't know why, but I can't hear you right now.
Yeah. Hello, hello.
Can you just a quick second here? I don't think it's you. I think it's me somehow, but
It's not you, it's me. Were you able to hear what I just said before?
sorry about that, everyone. Let me just. We're almost there. Why isn't this connected? Okay. Do you want to try speaking again? I think this might
Hello,
work.
hello, hello.
Yes. Okay. Sorry. Please keep going.
So where did I get it cut off? I don't know.
Um.
Was I in the story or
Yeah. No. It
you heard
was
all that?
right when I said it. Right when I said it. I like
Oh,
that
okay.
split second when I said it, I was like, oh, I can't hear you anymore, and I could see you moving. And
Back again.
yes.
Yeah. So I'm not sure exactly the question now, that I've gone up kind of all over the place, but
No, the question was about your experience. Like, how did it
yeah.
affect,
Yeah. So
affect
that's when it.
practice, like integrating this into your everyday? Yeah.
Hmm.
Wow. Yes, I wanna comment on what you said, and I'm just seeing that there's some people responding,
Oh,
and I just want to bring one of the comments on. Hi, Denis. I see that there are other people that I cannot see your name. I think StreamYard requires for you to accept being seen. So I'm not sure who this is,
yeah.
but they say, I think there's a socioeconomic aspect to the mindful of, where some do not feel they have access to the same tools, guidance, space to recognize they need that work and the guidance to practice it. Wow, that's really beautiful. That's really well said. Yes, I think there's also, you know, um, a lack of education in that department, and also resources, and having some people not knowing that they can, that this is helpful, this is good for their complete well-being,
Mhm.
breath work, this approach, and also that they might not have the means to have access to this, to practitioners or experiences. And yeah,
True.
that's a good point.
Yeah.
um, I want to come back to what you were saying about feeling, because I'm studying core energetics right now, which is all about energy in the body and movement and feeling and breath.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm really getting in my cells that breathing equals feeling.
Mm-hmm.
The more I breathe, the more I feel. And how
Mm-hmm.
that is like in moments I'm like, I don't want to feel right now. This is,
Exactly.
I'm just gonna like contain this. Uh,
Yeah.
and also that, however, if I do allow myself to feel, energy will move and then pleasure comes after.
Yeah.
So I'm really understanding that the more I allow myself to breathe, then the more pleasure I get to
Mm.
experience. And
Yeah.
there's this correlation. And yes, there's a pathway, and yes, there's this whole like um, there's a lot to face. Like there's for the trauma that you went through,
Mm.
which wow, like my heart just felt very tender there when you said about your experience about being burnt, and that the breath brought you to feel that experience in your body again. And the insight just came rushing in. And I feel
Mm-hmm.
that that's the power, that's the magic, that's the beauty, and
Yeah.
that you're ready in that moment to witness it and hold it and like integrate what needed to be integrated. It's
Exactly.
yeah.
And there's also something to the effect of breathing, like so much of, depression in ways that, bring us down is that feeling of separation. And so our breath also, I feel like through feeling, we feel also our connection to something, you know, our element, like elements around us, and something like to a source power and to something beyond us that's more than us. And that can be also, again, fearful. That can also feel like, oh my God, that's loss of control. And so there's
Mm,
also something about breath that, we see it through singing and also through breath work of like that need to control. A lot of people have that need to control. And so there's this, how can we, control that through our breath? And it's really unconscious of how we hold our breath, and how many cases of apnea there are, and how many cases there are of just, um, yeah, just as you said, like not miseducation or just lack of education
right.
of how to breathe, and that I feel like there's this power of knowing that there's no separation, and that everybody is breathing, and that even if we go beyond like more ethereal, like the same air that we're breathing is like what like, Jesus or Mary Magdalena like was breathing, so like this kind of reality that I have a trauma, you have a trauma, we all have different things, but how, yeah, like to have the courage to sit with it and breathe with it, and knowing that like everything is it's always changing, right? So but sometimes it takes longer than others to think for things to clear, but there's that, I feel like with breath work it's like that commitment, to go all the way, and yeah. So
I love that. I love the benefits. Like what I hear is that not only is the breath, I mean, incredible for, more vitality and also for the emotions and clear the mind, but also that it's a spiritual tool. Like it can connect us to something greater. And I like that because I'm still struggling with my spirituality, like with, my trauma has me in a place where I'm dismantling this belief, but for a long time, the belief was that, God, just from my upbringing, and I won't go into that, but God is not on my side. And so what you're bringing in, I'm really enjoying. I'm like, oh yeah, like the breath, same breath as all the incredible humans that have been, have come and gone, and also the breath that is connected to the elements, to the trees that purify it, and to the water, and all this like connection. And then then it makes me feel like I start to be connected to the whole, and
yeah,
that for
and
me
that
is
support
vitality.
system, that support system for you, it's like that we're being supported and our breath can support us, and so we're not alone in the journey, even if we feel alone in the journey, but there's, you know, that deeper support, because when we feel a support system or a community or even just our environment, then there's like also, you know, sometimes more apt to shift things, And if it's just for you and you, like, okay, who cares, And yeah, when God's not on our side, like, what's the point, So a lot of these kind of mindsets also, I find with breath work really helps us see our patterning and see how we think, because how we think creates our reality, right? And so also that power of that, and as we get deeper with breath work, we go into like even our birth story and how, like, what happens and what happened for you in the conception and in your birth story, and that imprints also our life thought patterns too. And so when we go deeper in and we have like longer sessions with breathwork, we touch upon those places, but it can also just come up spontaneously, going into like kind of a birth memory, like going to womb, and even because this work did come from rebirthing, which was more of like a yang way of doing with the breath, and this one is much more of like a softer opening allowance of breathing. So we often say, like, we encourage like the like a inspired inhalation, and then just letting go of the exhalation. So there's no forcing anywhere. And there's something that I really love about that, even with singing. It's like I often say, like, our belly is like our fire. So we need to, like, have that key to like breathe. We need to have a little bit of energy. But our exhalation, I often see it as like smoke. We just allow it to come through. And so often that's what we do with the breath work. It's just like really more of like that fire inhalation, not forcing, never wanting to force, just allowing inhalation, exhalation, and abandoning to it. So there's a sense of abandoning to yourself, which is like really vulnerable. you know
Whew.
so
I'm like, already, I feel like I'm working with you right now. You're talking, and I'm like, yes, okay, inspiration, okay, and release, and and just let it flow. And it's like, ooh, but it's nice. It feels good. I'm like, oh, I want to do this every day. Because
yeah.
yes, I'm that kind of person. I have a lot of yang in my energy, a lot of doing.
Yeah.
And it's very apparent in my breath, because for the longest time I would fill up and then very little exhale, very little release, very little surrender. And when I became aware of that, I started to bring consciousness to my exhale so that I can let go.
Yeah.
And I love what you're bringing, and this is the reason why I invited you for the retreat, because it's so like, yes, thank you for bringing this yin approach to a powerful practice. And
Mm-hmm.
like I'm just really, I can't wait to be in this beautiful room. The acoustics there, by the way, you're probably going to want to sing for sure, because the acoustics in the room at Otomon's Cap is
Mm-hmm.
phenomenal. But let's you said something about, this opening, that the breath work is about opening, and the theme of the retreat is the art of receiving.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd love for you to talk more about, how we open and how we receive through the breath work.
Sure. I mean, I ultimately feel like we're all kind of these channels. We have our story, our baggage, our birth story, all of this stuff, which is all valid and beautiful in its own way. But we're also, kind of these vessels, these channels of just beingness, when we allow ourselves to be, when we get out of the way. And I feel like with the breath, there's kind of this space to allow that receiving, to kind of allow, like, the now classic way of saying downloads, of what is there in our conscious, subconscious. And so receiving is, is sometimes really hard for people. Like, how do you abandon, and how do you, and in abandoning and just non-doing, receiving what is there. And this, the ultimate, it's really what meditation is. It's just observing and just receiving what is there, present, here and now, one step at a time, right? And so when we have our mind and trying to analyze, like, what is that, sometimes we can go into breath work or even meditation and, okay, like analyzing what we're seeing, or like, what does that mean, or all this stuff. And then we kind of get out of what's really going on. And so I find with breath work, because we have the breath that just is this constant reminder of us here, because we just want to keep on breathing and staying in that flow of the breath, that kind of keeps us present, but also allows that expansiveness of our mind, and observing the patterns, images, memories, all of these things. And so how to just receive them as they come without needing to name it, or to point it out, or to analyze it. So I think that that's a big part of how we receive, is just not to get into, the blah, blah, blah of it, of the story, of just observing.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I really hear like that the breath work allows us to be really present and in a being state. Like we can
Yeah,
being, instead of thinking and
yeah,
trying to make things happen. It's just
exactly.
yeah.
And
It's
sometimes, some people say, like, I don't feel anything, I don't see anything. And that's also really valid, because there's a lot of numbness that we live in our lives. And so through our breathing, it can show us that. And that's
mm,
really valid in itself. Because nothingness is a quality, or it can also be like a resistance. And so breathing through that is just following that river, just breathing through it. And then maybe something else is going to show itself. Maybe it's going to be some colors, or it's going to be even a thought, or just, and then just from there, what else is going to show itself? And then that's where, the magic lies, of just how much we allow to be there. And so I think that's so much of the power of receiving, um, without doing.
oh, I like that allowing. The word allow. I was like, ooh, that really resonates. Like it makes me want to just do this with my body, allowing. Oh.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
I'm loving this, and like it's really the combination of breath work and for me movement. Like this is just like the combo, to feeling aliveness,
Mm-hmm.
being fully in my body and fully alive. And so I cannot wait to combine our our gifts together, our forces during the retreat. Before we complete, I would love to know if you have any offerings coming in the new year. I mean, you're facilitating singing circles, which I have some friends and partner who participate and love it. So is that going
Mm-hmm.
to continue in the new year?
I'm going to be more on a creative stint this winter, but I'm going to be offering day retreats, in the Laurentians, in my studio, and maybe in others spaces too. And so that will be like a mix of breath work and voice play, I often say. And so I'll be doing that once a month. And then I'm gearing up for a master class starting in the fall of 2022. And
Wow.
that's going to be more with voice. But we bring in breath work and all sorts of varieties of things. And maybe in the spring, I will open up a voice, like I call them vocal vision or creative choir groups, like I've been just doing now with this season, which is a weekly, either like 6 weeks or 8 weeks. sometimes 12 weeks, but I don't think that I'll do that this spring. A week meeting every week and just exploring the voice as an amazing human instrument. So, but yeah, breath work will continue I like going deeper, like more on a retreat style than just doing kind of a couple of hours in the evening, because I find it can really be a deep space.
The deeper
I like
dive.
to be with people in the integration before they go home, because you never know what kind of things can show up and move through you. So yeah.
Amazing. And
Mhm.
if people want to stay in contact with you, is your Facebook, is it better for the Raphael music
Yeah.
or yeah, would that be where you post all your events and
Yeah, Instagram is more. I'm more active on Instagram than Facebook.
oh
Um,
great. Okay, so
then it's Raphael Music, and you can always go to my website because I often have all my events on there, and it's raphaelmakai.com. So those are my ways to get to stay in touch for
oh
sure.
cool.
Mhm.
So I will definitely put all those links in the comments. So
Okay.
your website and Instagram, those are the most like active
Mm-hmm.
places. Perfect. So I'll put those in so that they can reach you
Good.
and stay in contact and get more. And then come to the retreat also, so they can get
Yes.
more of you all the time,
Mhm.
as often as they can. I'm just gonna check before we complete. Yes, Denny. Denny says, can't wait to live it too. Yeah, he'll be at the
Yay.
retreat in January, at the end of January. Dates
Great.
are January 28th, 29th, and 30th in
Mm.
Sutton at Étoile Nauticale.
It's so
And
beautiful.
yes, wonderful. So thank you so much,
Mm,
Raphael,
thank
for taking the
you.
moment for this conversation. It was really, I really enjoyed it. Got so much out of it. And thanks for sharing about your personal experience. It's really, really touching and
Mm.
very inviting to be like, oh, okay, I wonder what I could discover about myself through this
Yeah.
practice.
Yeah, that's the thing, it can be like a deep journey through that trauma, but it can also be such a celebration also. It's like there's so many, every emotion we can live through breath work. So it's really um, so fascinating, really, when we dive in, where we're gonna go. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it, and I look forward to dancing with you and sharing in such a beautiful place down there in Sutton.
It's pretty magical there.
Really. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thank you,
Mhm.
Raphael. Thank
Thank
you.
you
And
so
I'll put
much.
all your links on the comment there for everyone to stay in touch with you.
Great. All right.
Great.
Take care. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.
Bye. Wow, that was really, whew, love that. Love that. I think I'm going to take some time to breathe after this just to connect with myself and especially for me to play with that exhale. I will put all the links in the comments shortly, and also the link to the retreat, which is called Embodied Self Winter Retreat. And oh, I didn't want to put the link there. I wanted to actually put the title there. and yeah, January 28, 29, 30th. I will put the link so you can register and share. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to write. I would absolutely love to connect with you. So thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. If you're in Montreal, enjoy the sun and keep breathing and dancing. Ciao.